So it's just unfortunate it's turned into this big discussion that it keeps on going. And so one of the points of my conference today is we've got to bring that to closure. We just got to do the work here. It's got to stop immediately. You know, the law is the law, and the lawyers interpret the law, and it's pretty clear. There is no grayness about there's always grayness. I shouldn't say there's none. You could always, depends on how you turn the page and how you read it. I mean, you can always say, well, it could mean this or it could mean that. But when a state agency interprets the law and lays that out for you, that's what you follow. You can't just continue to fight with them. It does us no good. There are expenses related to this. We have to pay the State Board of Accounts for this audit. We have to pay our financial consultants on both sides, redevelopment's staff, or their consultants, our consultants. We have to pay attorneys on both sides. And so it's been a huge waste of money to get to this point of finding out we are doing exactly what we were allowed to do from the beginning when we laid this out. That's a really disappointing part of this. Then you've got the public perception. You've got the outside of Terre Haute perception that something is wrong in Terre Haute. I mean, these kind of things are very negative to us moving this community forward. So it's just totally unfortunate that it's played out the way it has. The goal now is to correct it. You know, I've got information, I've got emails, I've got all kinds of documentation about, you know, how we vetted this, how we've looked at things, things prior to April 21st, things after April 21st when I notified the Redevelopment Commission about this, and the department first, then the Redevelopment Commission as a whole after that. And really we just got to work together to get things moving forward. And so what I'm going to do next is go back to this original document and following the State Board of Accounts requirements, directives, and engage a team effort here we're going to make sure it happens. That's my responsibility to make sure it all happens. But we need to work with the City Council and we need to work with the Redevelopment Commission to be in compliance with this as soon as we possibly can. The State Board of Accounts will be coming back in April or May to do our audit for last year, so they'll be looking at all this. The Department of Local Government Finance is ready to receive a budget approved by the City Council, even though it's late. It's too late to be official, but it'll be official through their process. We just can't, obviously it wasn't handled the way you would normally do it, where you advertise it and all that. So, but it'll put the structure in place that everything they spend will be part of the budget, like every other department. And then the salary ordinance for every employee in that department then will be approved by the City Council and sent to the Department of Local Government Finance also, so they can see that we're in total compliance, even though it's a little late. We should have done it last fall. We'll be doing it at this point. I think that as I said, we just need to get this behind us. We're going to take some immediate steps over the next few days to get this rolling and get it behind us as fast as we possibly can. And so that's the bottom line. Questions?
Could you just kind of put to bed forever, was the redevelopment money ever needed to make payroll? I know there was one deposit that we saw that went from a redevelopment bank account to a payroll account. The perception was that without that money, the city couldn't make its payroll.
We had a variety of expenses at that time, and we have two pooled accounts, and we move money. Whenever cash comes in, the money goes to the pooled account, and then we pay bills out of that. And so it's a constantly moving target. We had already moved money prior to that to deal with that. So on a particular day, whether that money was needed or not, that would be too late to react to that. That was something that we had done before that. And so just because money was moved from one account to a payroll account or an accounts payable account, I mean, depending on whichever one it goes in, it's because that's what we call those internally. There are only two pooled accounts. And so it had to go in one of the two, unless we went and closed out all their other accounts and created a new one just to manage their funds, which we weren't going to do. We manage it by fund accounting, but we're reducing the number of bank accounts we have. So at any given time, money could be, we didn't need it for that per se, but in another week, you might have needed that. That's why all the money goes into the pooled accounts. And that, once again, that's a good question because we didn't set these pooled accounts up. First of all, they were set up in 2005 before I got here. And so they've been pooling everything except redevelopment funds, added all those other departments, had been brought in, sanitary district, parks, whatever. That pooling started in 2005. All we were doing was integrating their funds over, and we started with a couple of certain accounts. It's perfectly legal. They've already checked our pooling of all the other funds, so this was no different. And that pooled account goes up and down different times of the year whenever you get your significant revenues.
I understood that it was okay to use pooled funds from whatever account as long as by the end of the year those funds were reconciled or back where they were supposed to be.
Reconciled.
Like were they able by the end of the year? I mean, were all the accounts back the way they were supposed to be?
Well, you don't put money back in the bank account because we have pooled accounts. Their fund management is how it's done. That's how the state has you manage your funds. And so at any given time in a year, you can have a negative balance in this fund and a positive here, and then it can switch. And all that's a moving target throughout the whole year. When you get it at the end of the year, you look at the funds they had. They took in X number. They had a balance when they came into the year. They took in a certain amount of money and they spent a certain amount of money, and then they have a balance at the end of the year. And if any of those funds are spent on something they're not supposed to be spent on, you can't do that. That's not what the situation is. When you pool cash, then you manage by fund. And so none of those funds were spent on anything that they weren't supposed to be spent on because it's pooled cash.
And I guess by the end of the year, they were where they were supposed to be then, those funds?
Well, those funds, yeah, we put out a report at the end of every month that shows what the balances of those funds are. Now, right now, we don't have the end of the year accounting done yet because we won't have it done till February because we have to report to the state. And so that'll show us what our fund balances are for the end of the year on all of our funds, not just redevelopment, but for everything.
And you said the audit was expensive. Could you say how expensive?
Well, we haven't got the bill yet. I mean, it's just, I think what I'm saying is, you've got State Board of Accounts bill we'll receive. Not sure when we'll see that exact number. There are financial consultants' bills that probably have already been submitted and maybe have been continued to be submitted. We'll have to add all that up. And then legal fees. So attorneys that they've hired or talked to, attorneys that we've hired or talked to, we'll have to pull all that together at some point when we can identify, specifically build. I mean, it's going to be thousands of dollars. I just don't know the exact amount yet.
So there's some simple corrections going forward that have to be made. Have you had any discussions with redevelopment about, correcting those?
Right, that'll be that next step. That's what I was talking about. I'm going to go back and revisit that original email so we've kind of got it all packaged together. I want to make sure they have all the information, but then we need their assistance because the salary ordinance and the budget will need to be approved by them first. That's the way it works with these departments like that. Parks Department, Sanitary District, those boards approve it first, then it goes to the city council, and then we send it to the state for approval. So we'll lay that out, basically a schedule or at least a task list of what we need to do, and then they will help us make that happen, get it on their agenda to get these things done in a timely fashion.
Can you proceed with running redevelopment and your funds now that you no longer have SBOA delays? Are you able to do what you want to do with that department to move forward?
Yeah, I think so. It's very clear. If this law hadn't changed, we probably wouldn't have been dealing with it right now. But since the law changed and said you have to do it by July 1st of 14, that's what kind of put us on a more accelerated scale. Now that we've gone through not only the interpretation of the law with a variety of sources, but seeing what the State Board of Accounts says, this is our plan of action. And so I don't see any reason why we can't get these things done and be in total compliance and everything be done in a way that everybody should be happy. I mean, really, a lot of these things is just more transparency. I mean, I think the taxpayers would think, this is great. We're going to know, salary ordinances. I mean, everybody knows how much money I make, but nobody knows how much some of those people up there make. Well, they should know that. There should be a budget so that we know, everybody knows, what they budgeted for and what they're expending. So I think those things I think we can get there pretty quickly. to get that.
And what's the redevelopment director's role in all of this?
Well, obviously, as the director of the department, you would have thought we'd already had this done. That's where we should have been working on these things, because especially the budget and the salary ordinance. You know, the question about the TIF funds and the pooling and all that, we had to wait on this. But there was never any doubt in my mind that we had, or anybody else's from now what I can tell, that we shouldn't have gone ahead and created a budget. That should have just happened. So, you know, as we move forward here, if we have to take the reins of that and do it, we will, because we're going to get it done.
Are you giving him first dibs on crafting his own budget?
Well, we want the Redevelopment Commission and the Redevelopment Department, like we do every other department, that's the way the preference is to be done. When we create a budget every year, they get together and they put something, you know, put an initial thing together, then they meet with the controller and go through it. That's the first step. So that has to happen. And so we need the help of the staff up there to help us to create this budget, but the Redevelopment Commission then will approve it. So they're going to need to be in the middle of that too. So it's a team effort.
And it'll go commission, city council, state. Like
Right. Yep.
Okay. In your mind, is this whole TIF soap opera concluded? Is it over? Is this the last word?
You know, we've not said much about it at all. It's unfortunate how there continues to be discussion. I know one of the things I heard yesterday, again, is that the redevelopment director is going to try to get the law changed. Well, this is the law. So unless something changes, we're always going to be compliant with the law. This is what it says. This is what we have to do. That kind of dialogue doesn't keep it from bringing to have closure. It simply doesn't. It's ridiculous that we're still talking about this publicly, that somebody doesn't like the law. Well, you know, that's not our problem here locally. You can call your legislator and say, hey, change it. But I tell you what's probably going to happen is there's going to be even more. They're going to tighten up even more. I think that was just an interim step. I don't know if it'll happen in this current session, but I've talked to many legislators who want to even put more restrictions in on TIF and redevelopment related activities because of problems that have happened. This is another example for them to say, what do we do to keep something like this from happening again?
How hard is it for you to work with the redevelopment department under this shadow that's been around for 6 months or so?
Well, we've just continued to operate. You know, all the staff has been great. The redevelopment director has made no effort to work with me on anything directly, but the staff takes care of most of that business, and so the work has gone on. I don't think it's, you know, we've got a great relationship with the staff up there. I think that everybody continues to do their job. This has just been kind of a sideshow.